What's up, everyone? Good morning. Happy Monday. I hope you guys are having an amazing start to your day. I know it's early, but I also hope you guys had a great weekend and hope things where you're at. I know here in Utah, things are calming down quite a bit. So it's going to be, so we've actually had a sense of normalcy this weekend. We were able to dine out. We went to the zoo. We were able to go. I mean, we were actually almost live a normal life this weekend, so it's actually been pretty fun. So I hope
I saw your pictures with the giraffes.
Yeah, right. So it's like it's it's starting to calm down a little bit. So I'm super excited for that. So I'm excited because today launches something that we're going to be starting every month here in the Mortgage X Mastermind, and that is our Leadership Live. And so every month, Jess here is going to be doing a webinar talking about, whatever, basically her passion and her expertise, sales coaching. And we're going to be talking about taking action. Now we did, habits of top producers. So she's going to be, lending her expertise every month doing these webinars. But not only that, but she's also going to be a content contributor to the Mortgage X Mastermind. So I'm excited to have her. And if you guys haven't checked out our earlier video, you should. It was actually a really good, really good interview, and really not really an interview, just having a nice conversation about what top producers do. And one of those habits was taking action. And so that's what Jess is going to talk to. So I'm going to shut up and let Jess take it, and then I will chime in every now and then to, if there's something that I think is, we want to go a little bit deeper into. So without any further ado, for those that don't, just go ahead and introduce yourself and take it away.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, Jason. As always, really excited to be here. I always laugh, at the beginning of interviews, everyone's like, so grateful to be here. What if someone was just like, I don't really want to be here, dude. Like, you forced me. It's always like this big, 30-minute setup, but so anyways, thank you. I am pumped to be here, and I'm excited to see all of you and chat with you a little bit today. But I'm Jess Vogelpohl. I am a Shiba Inu dog snuggling lover of Malbec and coffee and mama of two. And I've been a sales coach with Southwestern Coaching for a while now, and just absolutely adore what I do and really want to give as much value to you guys as possible because I get so passionate about helping other people succeed, and in turn it gives me those little warm fuzzies. So I guess partially selfishly motivated. But today we are digging into a topic that is really near and dear to my heart because I feel like this is something that has plagued me my entire life. And it's still something that I have to deal with and talk through with my coach all the time. And it's kind of piggybacks on what we talked about last time, was the 3 habits of top producers. And I'm going to start off with a question. You can join in if you want, comment. But do you guys know what the most expensive invisible cost to your business is? Anyone know? Jason, you have any ideas? It's okay if it's wrong.
The most, jeez. I would say I don't know. I would say
it starts with a P and rhymes with procrastination.
Let me see. Well, I know that well, so that would have to be procrastination.
Yeah, it's something that I know well too. And we take it a step further at Southwestern. We actually call it creative avoidance. And it's super important to actually to name it that, because think about it. When we procrastinate about things or on things, we are actually making a choice not to do something. So we have to take that ownership over it. And what top producers do better than anyone else is they take action right now. They don't wait till they have everything that they need in front of them to actually take that next step. And so when the reasons that we call it creative avoidance is because you got to have a little pain behind it. And there's so many things that we creatively avoid that we don't necessarily know we're doing or why we're doing that. So I'm really, really excited to kind of dig in on this topic and just chat a little bit more, because I bet none of y'all realize how deep procrastination goes. So you guys ready to dig in? You ready, Jason? Get pumped?
Yeah, so let's rock it.
Let's talk about the law of diminishing intent. So the law of diminishing intent, it really states that when our intention is at its highest, so our intention to complete an activity is at its highest in that moment, we have to make sure that we act right away. Because Otherwise, if we don't act right away, that intention is going to start fading. So the longer we wait to do something after we've decided that we want to do it, the odds of actually completing that goal, they decrease exponentially over time. So think about it this way. It's like it's Friday, you're, chugging some beers or eating chicken wings. And I think I've talked about this before, but you feel bloated and you feel gross. And so you're like, Monday, I'm going to start working out. Or in terms of sales, you're getting ready to sit down and you're all pumped. You got the phone. For once in your life, the phone doesn't weigh 1,000,000 pounds, and you're ready to start prospecting. What we find is we start talking ourselves out of it. We start figuring out ways as to why we should not be doing that one thing that we know is going to help us. And isn't it interesting that the one thing that we as business owners and those in sales that we push off the most and we creatively avoid the most is the one thing that is going to bring us more business, and that's prospecting. I don't know how many times I've heard leaders say, well, my team, they're all lazy. They're just super lazy and they're not prospecting. I just don't understand why they're not doing it. And man, is it so much deeper than actually just being lazy. So that law of diminishing intent, if we can act the minute that we have that feeling of, gosh, I know that I need to go do this, I know it's going to help me improve. Oh man, if you can develop that habit of acting right now and stop putting things off, oh boy. I don't know about you, Jason. How has creative avoidance or overcoming creative avoidance, how is that something that is, I guess, helped you in your life by overcoming it?
Yeah, so this is actually a near and dear to my heart topic, and the reason why is because I tend to procrastinate a lot. And it's not just because I don't want to do it. It's or even that I don't want to do it. It's unfortunately kind of something that's been ingrained in my DNA since I was a kid, and my mom always would get on me about doing that. My problem with procrastination is that I've never had it really bite me in the ass, and that's the problem. Is that I get energized when I wait, and again, within reason, right? If there's something I really got to plan for, I'm going to plan for it. But if it's something that I know I could get done in a certain amount of time, and I'm up and I'm doing it, that's when I get, honestly, where I get the most creative, when I get the most energy. And so it's just been part of what I do, and because I haven't had that failure because of doing it, and because it hasn't really, I've gotten close, don't get me wrong, I've gotten close, and I highly don't recommend being a procrastinator to anybody. But I will say, to answer your question, is what I've done is I really started, especially when I got so many things going on, is I really started time block. Calendar is one thing that's really saved me, is I live and die by my calendar. So I'm very, very strict when it comes to like, hey, appointments, someone sends me a message, I send them a calendar link. It's not like that I don't want to talk to somebody. It's like, look, if I don't have it on my calendar, you could tell me, we could have this conversation right now for the next hour, and you were like, oh, we'll do blah, 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 blah. I will, because I'm going to go right on to the next thing. I'm going to absolutely forget like the time, the place, the day, and all that other good stuff. So without reminders, I don't have it. So that's why I live and die by my calendar. But I'm a religious user of Trello for my tasks. So I've been kind of finding what works best for me. Now that's me. Some people don't like Trello. Some people like different task system, and that's fine. But for me, I need to have some sort of visual process of my tasks. And that's has to work for me. And that's the thing, is that if it doesn't, someone else could give me some sort of framework or some tool. But if my head doesn't look at it right, then it doesn't matter. It's just like the CRM question. What's the best CRM? It's like someone could say, oh, Whiteboard's awesome. The other person could say Whiteboard sucks. Someone could say Jungo is awesome. Another person says Jungo sucks. It's all personal preference. So for me, Calendar and Trello has been really what's helped me. And I feel it though too, is like when I take that action, when I check something off of a list or move it to the done column in Trello, like it's like a shot of endorphins, right? It's just, it feels good.
I know. Well, I love what you just said there about how creative avoidance and procrastination has kind of just been ingrained in your DNA. And it's really interesting because there really is a lot of truth to that within us, because our brain is designed to keep us safe. Like that is one of its sole functions amongst a bunch of other functions, right? That it does to keep us alive. And it will keep us safe in ways that maybe aren't actually that serving for us. So when we are consistently creatively avoiding things, at some point that had served us. where, hey, I put off this, whatever, insert task, and I felt kind of good about it. And it made me feel good that I put it in that moment. I felt like warm fuzzies because I didn't have to go do something. And so that your brain has now then said, okay, boom, anytime I'm presented with this situation, if I creatively avoid it, it's going to give me these warm, fuzzy feelings. And so same thing happens when, say, you know that you need to be prospecting. And I say prospecting, when I say that, I don't necessarily mean smiling and dialing and calling 3,000 people. I look at it more as relationship building, but you're sitting down and we as humans, we don't like to be told no. We don't like to be rejected. And for the most part, that kind of is what happens during prospecting or building relationships and sales. You're sitting down to do that. And then all of a sudden your brain starts giving you all these reasons and setting off all of these alarms as to why this is scary and uncomfortable. And you start to listen, because that brain of yours, it's got a really, really powerful narrative as to why it's wanting to keep you safe, even though it's not going to serve you to do so. So it's so important that we push past our own comfort zones. And every time we cultivate that habit of taking action now, and we do it just a little bit, even on the small things. Hey, I'm procrastinating, not making my bed. Okay, go do it. I'm procrastinating sending this text message. Okay, go do it. When you do something small, you start to compound those habits over and over and over again. So stepping out of your comfort zone and taking action out, a lot of times they go hand in hand. And one of the processes that we talk about heavily is a 3-step process. So write your goal down. Make it a really specific goal, and then create a deadline for it, and then start taking action and doing something regarding that goal immediately. So maybe it's like you want to get a really good booty. You want that real good booty in your bikini, or for 6-pack abs. Do some sit-ups right then and there. Do some squats. It sounds silly, but what's happening is you have now said to your brain, hey, I've had this idea and I want to do this. Now I'm going to start doing things and taking action on it. And it's now set some things in motion with your synapses and your brain. Everything's happening. And it's now created this new network of, hey, remember that one time Jess went and did squats when she didn't really want to, but now she's cultivated that habit, and it's going to start compounding. I could talk about the brain all day when it comes to this. Obviously, just nerded out heavily.
Well, I think it's one of the things that, and this was years ago, and I keep threatening myself to get back into it, but I need to. And honestly, I had everything like super set up, and this is going to sound like a major excuse, but like I had my gym membership and everything was ready to go, and then this hit, and then so all the gyms closed, and it just really screwed up my routine. So now I had to come up with a new one, like walking, doing like a certain path every morning, listening to a podcast and everything else. But the Miracle Morning was something that really, really put me on a good track. And it's one of those things that it isn't easy for everyone. Not everyone's an early riser. Fortunately, I've been blessed to it's not a big deal to wake up at like 4:30 in the morning or 5 in the morning. And get feel rested, have a good night's sleep. I don't need a lot of sleep. As I'm getting older, I need more, but it's just been the nature of how I came up in my jobs that I've had, to where I would be working for 36 hours straight. That wasn't out of the norm for me. In fact, it was quite normal. And I'm not saying this is a healthy way to go, but I'm just saying that's just how I've been built. And so the Miracle Morning, it helped me because it gave me a structure. So I'm waking up at this time, and then I'm doing some reflection, then I'm doing some meditation or whatever. Meditation's hard for me because I always have stuff going on in my mind. Yeah. So having to be able to just sit there quietly and not have stuff going on is almost next to impossible for me. So I figured out a different way to channel it, and that was listening to a podcast or something to keep me focused on a topic. And that was my own version of meditation. And that's with all these things, is you got to take what works for you and what makes sense for you to do that. But getting up, doing that, having a glass of water because you're dehydrated when you wake up, and just realizing that, man, I felt really good when I started, drinking water and getting on this, going and working out, and then getting everything done, and realized that by the time I got into the office, which would be around 7 o'clock, that I had already so I'd woke up at 4:30, did my stuff, and sometimes I was in the office I'd be at the gym at 5, then I'd be at the office by like 6:15 or 6:30. Like then I put in 3 hours of work and doing what I'm doing, and then realizing at 9:30 that I've done more than what most people do an entire day, and realize I still got a ton of hours left to do what I need to do. That really supercharged what I was doing. That really gave me a good structure. And unfortunately, just there's too many things working at home and kids and everything else. It's just I haven't been able to keep that structure. But I am excited to get back into my absolute like ironclad routine again.
Well, I think I love that. That's great. And when we are presented with a new, that new normal like we are now, our habits are going to shift. We have to adapt our habits and we have to shift them. A lot of us will have that all or nothing mentality where you either have to go all in like guns blazing or you're not making an impact at all. And that's something that I have dealt with, I still deal with on a regular basis, that if I'm prospecting this week and I don't call 3,000 billion trillion people, did I actually prospect? Well, it doesn't have to be that way. I hate, there's certain types of exercise and working out that I hate. Does it mean that if I go for a walk or I do 100 squats, that because I didn't sweat profusely that I didn't work out? No. And so it's all about starting off with a really small habit and then almost snowballing it until it becomes you. And one of the things I love with working with leaders, so we do these really fun complimentary workshops that we put on with leaders. And so one of the things I chat with almost every single time when I'm getting ready to put together one of these sales webinars is my team is lazy. Okay, well, tell me a little bit more about that. Well, they're not prospecting. They're not, building their business. They're not filling that funnel, whatever your verbiage is. And there's almost two schools of thought here. One of them is the leader just can't see that it's so much more than just being lazy, right? It's about not necessarily having a vision that is so much bigger than them, not being connected to that vision. And then they aren't asking for referrals consistently, so they don't have good people to call. And then when they do call them, they don't know what the heck to say because they just are lacking those sales skills. And they don't know how to navigate objections or close. So there's so much more than it just being about being lazy. But the leader has cultivated the habit of prospecting, of relationship building. So to them, when he or she's like, go prospect, they're like, okay. In his mind or her mind, they're like, yeah, that makes sense because it should just be that easy. Just go prospect because it's a habit. Right? But then on the other side, you have the leaders that are telling people, hey, go prospect, but they themselves, they are creative avoiders. They don't prospect and they're enabling all of these bad habits within their teams, but they just can't see it. And so I think that's really important. We'll get kind of coming in and shaking that up. But I think one of the things that probably we haven't thought of, the 3 styles of procrastination. Like this is something I never knew about until I started working with Southwestern Coaching. But as a top producer, it's so important to be aware of what exactly might be preventing you from taking action now. It's so easy to say, well, just go freaking do it, right? But there's something so much deeper that's blocking you. So procrastination is the action of delaying or postponing something, right? That seems like a pretty straightforward definition. But by becoming aware of the different styles of procrastination, that can really help us to prevent it. So the 3 types, the first one is procrastination, right? So delaying what you know you should be doing. Then we have creative avoidance. So that's unconsciously filling the day with that menial or trivial work just to be busy. So to distract you, to make yourself feel good about actually doing something. So you get to the end of the day and you're like, well, I did this, and this, but you didn't actually do the one income producing activity that was going to push your business forward. And then the third one is priority dilution. So that's consciously delaying by allowing your attention to shift to less important tasks. So those constant fires that are coming up thinking, well, I have to put this fire out now. There's nothing in our day for the most part that is that emergent that it can't wait 30 minutes until the next time block. So I think knowing where you are is the first step to understanding why you're doing it. Now I need a drink after that.
Yeah, that's funny. I never knew that there was like different levels of it. I think I may have created my own when it comes to procrastinating. But
Yeah.
it's fun. Well, that's why I like these things, because you just you get to know more, right? Like you just get to learn more about how in depth you get it. And to me, it's like once you really start looking at it in the detail, the detail view, it ends up making a little bit more sense. And I'll say, it's funny that we're actually talking about this, because I start every Monday with kind of, all right, what do I want my, so I started the new newsletter called The Letter X.
Oh, yeah.
And this content, for those that missed this or whatever, I'm going to be doing a replay of this video, or at least a link to it, in Saturday's newsletter. But the focus this morning when I woke up, and I was like, okay, what is my theme going to be? I was like, eat that frog. And so that it was so funny, but it was years ago that I had heard that term for the first time. And it was an agent or broker owner in Arizona, Jason Leos, and he this was on Snapchat, and he was like, okay, he's all, I'm gonna tell you guys right now, the best thing I ever did was learn to eat that frog first thing in the morning. And I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And that's when he went into it, and he's like, get that, eat the stuff, do the stuff you don't want to do, or do the stuff that like you just need to get out of the way or whatever first. And then he kind of went into it, and then I guess there's a book about it, or a popular book about it, and ever since then, it has always stuck with me. So I read some of the news and stuff in the morning and see some posts. I do, like a half an hour of looking around social media and groups, what people are talking about. And that's what I wrote down. I wrote, eat the frog, focus. And so that's what the theme. Now, the newsletter has a whole bunch of stuff in it, but that's kind of the theme, is how I'm going to start off with this week's newsletter. So it's great that this was the topic that you decided to do this morning.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so important. It's one of those things where creative avoidance, procrastination, whatever you want to call it, it really does get in the way of our lives and our businesses. And I one of the things that it's so easy to say, to go out and do it, like go prospect, go out and work out, whatever it is that you're procrastinating on. But there is something blocking you from doing that. And I think it's so important to actually explore that and understand what it is, and really digging deep. I never really understood my own reasons for procrastinating and what happened. But now I know if I procrastinate too much, I start having all these things stack on top of me. And then I get really overwhelmed. And the first thing that I do is I start to get flaky. I start to want to sleep more. I want to avoid things. And that's how I know I'm being triggered. And so I think but it wasn't until walking through with my coach where I really understood what that was, because I thought I was just being lazy. But really, there were so many more layers to that. And I was coaching with one of my gals the other day, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I do not know why I freaked out on my husband the other day." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like do tell! I can't wait to hear." And she's like, he told me we were out of, I think it was like some silly like kitchen counter spray, and she lost it. She's like, I was like, just, whatever, harping at him. And she goes, I just wasn't pissed at the kitchen spray. And that is the straw that broke the camel's back. So if we're procrastinating too much and our tasks start to weigh on us, and we're going to freak out, and that is not a fun feeling, where you're constantly living in that state of anxiety. So one of the things that I'm going to encourage everybody to look at, and I talk about this all the time, is when our clients are having issues with time management, or they just feel really overwhelmed, I'll have them do a brain dump right there on that coaching call, where they just write down, and we talk through everything that's stealing their peace, that they know they need to get done. And I just say, barf it all up on me, man. Just get it all out. I write it down, and then we put a plan. So instead of having a to-do list, it's a must-do list with an actual deadline. And I have them put that in their calendars, where, hey, I need to call and make a doctor's appointment. Okay, when are you going to do it? Put it in your calendar. Every single day, I have a time block, and I coach a lot of my clients on this, is to-do list time, where it's just 30 minutes in the afternoon or morning, and I just knock out whatever I need to get done that day. But every single week before I start my day, and we coach our clients on this, is do a brain dump. write it all out, map it where you're going to put it into your schedule, and you're going to be far more productive throughout your week. Yay.
I like it. Sorry, every time I'm going that, because I have my windows open in my office, and so I mute so I don't get that sound effect, and then it just focuses on me.
No, you're fine.
So every time you smile, I gotta find the mute. Yes, and I know the shortcut on Zoom of hitting the space bar, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, it's funny because some people's like, I just found this out, and like, yeah. So if you're mute, if you hold the space bar down when you're muted, it allows you to.
Will it mute you if you're?
No, so like if you put yourself on mute, so I'll do it right now, and then if I hold the space bar down, now I'm talking, but if I but I know, mind blown, right? But it's funny because then I'll forget to, I'll forget that I'll be talking and I'll just let my hand go, and then it's like mute, live, mute, live, mute, live. But yeah, no, it's it's a ton of great knowledge, and for me especially, it's doing the deadlines is something that before I'd be like, oh, my task list, just throw that on there. But
right.
Without having the deadlines, that's when, because it's funny, it's a total psychology thing, right? Like you have a deadline, it's like, okay, I'm working to finish it by that deadline. If I don't do that to myself, then I'll like, oh, I could just rearrange that or whatever. So even if it's not something that's super critical, I always put a due date, because I know if anything that you're using for it will then start to annoy you, right? So so sometimes that I know in my head, I'm like, okay, I have these priorities. So what I do is I have it as, so what I started doing in my inbox is, and I forget who I learned this from. It was some hack, productivity hack thing that I got from some blog. It led me to this, and I was watching this YouTube channel, and it was more of just because I use use it at work. I use Gmail or G Suite, and I am not a fan of the interface of Gmail, right? Like I don't like it. I think it's just too noisy, and I'm more of an Outlook guy when it comes down to it, except I won't use Outlook with G Suite because it doesn't work well. So I'm happy with G Suite, but it just doesn't organize the way that I was able to do it in Outlook and be able to, do whatever, right? So I'm like, can I be better? Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm assuming you do. But for me, like, I get so many freaking emails, just too many, and from all over the place, and some just aren't important, right? And some of them are, so I used to use this one service, but I didn't feel like paying for it because I figured I could just do this with Gmail myself, right? So now I use labels religiously now. So if you guys don't know, I have all these different labels. Now what I do is I put one, and it's called action required. And so that means if I absolutely need to respond to this and do something, and action needs to be taken, then it's a red label that says action required, and then I could just click on that label and it has everything that I need from an email perspective. Then I also have like follow up, which is something that I do need to get to at some time. And then the cool thing is then I can convert ones into tasks that are tasks, and then I remove them from my inbox. So yes, you have to do a little bit more work, but look, I think for people that don't really manage their email box, trust me, your world gets a ton better when you absolutely manage it, because you don't have a ton. You can get to inbox zero, and then like as you start to go and search for emails and stuff, then everything starts to become more problematic when you guys are doing loans. And this is something that I learned from one of our top producing loan officers at my old company. He created responders and forwarders and folders for each client, and then everything was kept within that that channel for that borrower too. But I've seen so many people and they can't find an email and blah blah blah, and it ends up making your world suck. So manage your email, especially when you're starting, and maybe you start over, you have some stuff, archive it. Learn to use the archive feature in Gmail, it's fantastic. And then learn to use the labels and tags so that you can easily manage, and you can have that inbox zero life. I swear I do it.
I live that life.
I live that life.
I love it. Well, and one thing I would add on that, my hitchhike on that is don't check your email all day. You don't need to be in your email all day, every day. Email is one of the biggest time sucks that we have. And so most of our clients they balk about this, and they kind of want to, drop kick us when we tell them only check your email 2 or 3 times a day. Have it scheduled in your calendar. Here's 30 minutes to dedicate to email. And most people freak out and they say, okay, well, I can't do that. So we start off like 4 times a day and we work backwards, but it's such a time suck. So don't do it. And I was writing a bunch of notes as you were talking, but one of the things that you said earlier, I think is interesting, is the best schedule that we have ever been on as just humans is high school. You knew when you were going to the next class, there was a bell. You knew you only had a few minutes to get there. You didn't really get to sit around and like procrastinate to get there. You had to get there or else you were late. And it's the same thing where if you are using your calendar, look at it that way, like that high school bell structure. And the biggest thing that I want to say is the amount of time that you allot for a task, you're going to finish it in that time allotted. You're going to fill that time. So if you have a task that's going to take 30 minutes and you give yourself 8 hours to do it, you're going to take 8 hours to do it. So are you being realistic about how much time you're scheduling for things? And if you see yourself consistently putting off the same types of things, prospecting is one of the biggest things, most prevalent things that we put off. If that's happening, put it in your schedule first thing in the morning, come hell or high water, do it and go for it. Otherwise it won't get done.
Space Absolutely. Spacebar. Absolutely. No, it's true, right? Like it if I don't do it, if I really don't make a concerted effort to throw it on my task list, to label on stuff, it gets missed. And that's something that I had to do all last week. So another thing that I'm adding to this is because I am working on other projects is, and then same with the Real Disrupt podcast collaborative and everything else. And then obviously what I'm doing at Cardinal, but, I kind of have like a love-hate relationship with Slack. And so I was like, I'm going to do this something for Mortgage because I'm working with some outside vendors and people on certain projects. They want me to, advise or consult on certain things. So, but stuff was getting lost in email and I was falling behind because I don't like to check email. I hate email. I'll tell you that right now. I absolutely cannot stand email. But unfortunately, it's just the nature, right? And everyone's like, well, this is going to be an email killer. Now, Slack was pretty good at least taking conversations because, look, you could have 25 emails about nothing in a matter of minutes, right? We all know that, especially when you're in a company and everyone's emailing and then someone throws in a joke or an image and then like, what time do you want to do lunch? And then before you know it, and you're like, what's good, what's popular, what matters? So I actually started this this weekend as I had Slack. I created a MortgageX community for Slack for the people that I'm working with, and then the podcast hosts from Real Disrupt and everything else. We're launching a new podcast this week, so I'm excited about that on Wednesday for a very special lady, and so really excited about that. And so I was going to do all this in Slack, but even with Slack, Slack is very powerful, but it has all these different. It's that shiny object syndrome, right? There's so many different things and things you get into. So I wanted to find like an alternative, and again, something that was free because I didn't want to have to, for this, it wasn't going to be something that I'm going to be using every single day. But I just wanted a nice collaboration tool, not another Facebook group, something else. So what did I do? So I found this app called Twist, and it looks a lot like Slack, except it's very lean. It's like a lean, light version of Slack called Twist. And so I started using that. This week, I'm going to start inviting all the podcast hosts, the people that want to use that. They can. But that's where we could drop episodes. That's, promote their new episodes and everything else. So Twist is what I'm using. And that is, I'm going to be using that as one of kind of a productivity enhancer and take some of that communication from email and throw that into Twist.
That's cool. I just wrote that down, like circled it a bunch. I can't wait to look it up. And at the end, I hear it all the time, everything that you're saying, in terms of, what's the best CRM? What's this? What's that? What's this? And everybody, it almost paralyzes us. And then we completely avoid actually doing it, or actually choosing one. At the end of the day, just pick one that you're going to use. And maybe you don't know which one you're going to use. So then just pick one. Like just pick something and execute on it consistently. And most of the time, the most basic, the better. If you are not one of those people that are not executing consistently on the basics, then don't get creative. It's
Totally.
that's all she wrote.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah, it's all. It's just I feel like I'll just say over and over, if don't execute, don't get creative if you haven't mastered the basics. I'll just say that over and over again on the next monthly podcast thing.
Yeah,
So
no,
true.
it's true, right? It's true. And so we had one comment on here from where did it go? So I have this John. John had mentioned that he loves the fact that we attack this subject first thing on a Monday morning, which I think is good, right? So I think this was the perfect topic. It absolutely plays into what the letter X theme is going to be this Saturday about eating that frog, taking action, and we need that now. And I think one thing as we start to somewhat normalize, and as we start to somewhat come out of this, and this we kind of talked. So last week was the Next Level Loan Officers Mastermind, which had a lot of great speakers and content. You know, I'm lucky to be a part of that and to be able to speak about marketing. And I talked about basically announced a new program that I'm building for Next Level. That's me exclusive to the Next Level Loan Officer coaching program that I'm calling Pathfinder. And so that Pathfinder program is going to be about a totally different way of marketing DNA, so to speak, for loan officers. It's going to be something. So it's going to bring in a lot of different things that they're used to, but it's going to be in a different way. And as we normalize, this is very important because there are a lot of us, and I can tell you right now, I'm one of them, that did not take as much advantage as I should have during this time. And it's easy to get sidetracked, and I could come up with a million different reasons and valid reasons why I didn't. It's like, well, I just got to keep my sanity of my wife with the kids being at home and, you know, all this other stuff. So it wasn't like, hey, we're all at home just chilling and just have a ton of free time on our hand. It wasn't like that at all. But I think as we're starting to, and people is still busy. A lot of, you know, loan officers that I know are busier more than ever. And so, but with that, it's going to be a little crazy as we come out of this. So now take the time to put these systems in place. And as I see posts from like loan officers that have only been in the business for a year or less or just started, a lot of them don't have this education, or they chose the wrong mentor, or had no mentor at all. And that's one thing, is if you get into this business and you don't have someone that you could turn to,
Right.
a coach or some sort of sales leader or a mentor, you're just kind of figuring it out on your own. Now, some people, that's okay. Some people you can just let loose and they're going to do it regardless. You can put them in anything, any situation, and they're going to be okay. But not everyone's built that way. And so I think, you know, starting with this, and it's the same thing. To me, it's like the foundation, right? This is a foundational element as you start to build what you're going to build off in sales and business, right? And you mentioned prospecting, right? Putting that off because whether it's call reluctance or whatever the reason why you don't want to do it, totally get it. But it's the same thing as when people that are like, hey, I want to buy leads, or I want to generate leads, and I want to do all that stuff, but they have no systems in place, no workflow, no follow-up, nothing. And it's just like, you're just throwing money away. And that's the work part of it. Like, people don't want to put the effort into doing that.
Right.
Another thing that I talk about is like brand building. Like, you got to start, and that's why I posted the article last week that I wrote about the 6 questions you need to ask yourself before you start building a brand. Because everyone wants, like, I got to get a website, I got to get my logo, I got to get my tagline and colors. That doesn't matter if your brand is nothing, right? Like, you got to build that brand, figure out what you're going to say first, and everything else comes. But it's the work. It's not the sexy part. It's not the fun part. People don't like to do all that. Same with like building an avatar of your perfect customer and who you want to attract to do business with. People don't want to take the time to do that either because it's not fun. It's not entertaining. It doesn't, check the right boxes in your head. I get all that, but and again, everything that I'm talking about isn't like, this is all coming from personal experience.
Yeah.
Things that I've overcome, things that I'm still working to overcome. So when this isn't me talking at anybody. This is me just saying, hey, I've dealt with this myself. This is how I overcame it. May work for you, may not, but or at least get you, if anything, what I want these leadership lives to be about, whether it's from Jess or from anyone else, what I want these to get about is to get you thinking and then think of ways on how it can work for you. Like every marketing book, business leadership book that I read, anything any content I'm consuming, I'm taking it and realizing, how do I make that work for me? I never take anything verbatim and say, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to get X, Y, and Z results. It doesn't work, at least for me, it doesn't work that way. Now, some things like checking your oil and stuff like that. Yeah, it's going to work, right? Like that's a necessity, right? There's things with business and marketing, but looking at certain workflows or certain ways of grabbing consumer attention or stopping the scroll, look at different ways of doing a funnel and whatnot, is I take it and use that as a blueprint and then build and be creative on my own. And that's what everyone I think should be doing. But you need to have those foundation, you need to have those core pillars or principles, whatever you want to talk to them, to build upon. And that's what I liked about what we talked about today, because is that's it. Because look, if it's hard for you to plan and decide how you're going to build your business if you don't have some sort of semblance of keeping track and measuring and tasking and deadlining, so that it does work to your advantage. Because it might be okay for me to do certain things like that, but as not just the majority of our audience is going to be mortgage professionals, you can't do that, right? You have your lock expirations, you have your close, your COE, your close of escrow, you have your contract, that you have everything that you have to go by. So you doing that makes it a ton worse. Ordering appraisals and stuff. The day that you delay something, you have so many different, so many different cogs. There's just a lot of different things that could go wrong and delay, and one thing leads to another and another. So you don't have that luxury in this industry to do that. Right now, you can get away with it a little bit, but you're, at one of those times, it's going to come and affect a consumer, which is the worst thing that could happen. Agent relationships and everything else. So don't put off tomorrow what you could do today.
All that stuff. I mean, all that stuff, that creative stuff. Yeah, that's fun. Like, it's fun to do all that kind of cool creative stuff. But when, going off on the house foundation analogy, nobody ever looks at a house and thinks, whoa, that's a really cool foundation, dude. Like, that's the coolest foundation I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
But you don't get to have the cool house with all the cool things and picking out the flooring and the roof and the shutter, all that stuff, if you don't have a foundation, because you can put all that on there, but it's going to crumble. And so then you spend all this money and time and effort, when if you just master the basics, if you just focus on the basics, that it's going to grow, and it's going to continue to grow up and out. But you got to have that foundation first. It's crucial.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you. We actually had a lot of people on, and it was some good stuff. People liked what we're talking about. Joe Wilson says you're awesome.
Hey, Joe.
And he says I'm okay too. So that was nice of Joe to throw that in there. But this, I think, a good start off on Monday. And then again, those that are either arriving late or watching now, this is a leadership live that Jess is going to be doing once a month in the mastermind, roughly around this time each month. And then Jess is also going to be a regular content contributor of the Mortgage X Mastermind. So looking forward to that. But Jess is awesome. So if you guys haven't connected with Jess, do so. She's fun to talk to. We've gone into the rabbit hole of conversations and talk way longer than what we planned on. And again, go back to the original interview that I did with Jess, where she talked about the habits of top producers. And I went into a little bit about that, about how Jess and I got connected, and how I think if you're new and you do have reluctance and you are trying to get into an industry, and I talk to people like that every single day, and there's some things that I'm doing to kind of help these people get in the industry, the right people at least, but Jess approached it the right way. And if we're going to focus on prospecting, and topic that Jess brought up, Jess approached the communication with me, because I get every single day, I get messages about, checking out my product, or, hey, can you promote me on the podcast, or blah, 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 blah. And it's all about value to them. It's nothing about, well, what is the value to me? And by me, I'm not talking me personally, but me as in like my community, like the people that have trusted to, subscribe to the podcast or the newsletter and stuff, for me not to be, a promotional D-bag of somebody else's stuff that, is just trying to get money from them, because that happens all day long, but really to ferret out the people that are going to really add value. And so that's why, I wanted to make Jess a content contributor, because she absolutely has played the game the right way and and it has stayed around and contributed. And so that's why I wanted to bring this to you guys once a month. And so connect with Jess if you haven't, but you're going to see a lot more of her, not just here in the mastermind, but she's connecting with the right people. Even Joe, he's somewhat of a he's somewhat of a good guy, but Jess is connecting with all the people in the industry, and I think you will get value out of her content.
Yeah, let us know if there's anything you want to hear more about, or we can dig deeper in, because I'll definitely. Southwestern's been around forever. I guarantee you, we have some sort of content and curriculum that I can speak on.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right, everyone. Well, hey, thank you for joining us here for almost an hour on a Monday morning. I do want to remind you that so I started a new process for our webinar. So it's what I mentioned earlier, that I'm launching a new program with Next Level called Pathfinder. I'm doing a kind of a light version of that called Pathfinder X, and that's going to be just members of the Mortgage X Mastermind. And what Pathfinder X is formally known as our Mortgage X Marketing Office Hours call. These marketing webinars series, so to speak, are going to be, you have to register for them if you want to be a part of them. If you want it, for those of you, because everyone that's joining the mastermind, they always mention marketing as being something that they want to learn more about. That's what these calls are for, right? Pathfinder is going to be a pretty high-end mortgage coaching for cost program. So it's something that you're going to have to pay for. Pathfinder X is something that's going to be free within this group. Now, I'm not going to go in depth like I do in the regular Pathfinder program, but if you do have a marketing question, something on brand, something about Facebook ads, or something else that I could help with, that's what Pathfinder X is going to be. So make sure you register. And it doesn't mean you have to join, but because that way you'll get the email reminders and everything else, because the way Facebook's doing its events now has changed and people don't get them, they forget them. So now when you register in a Zoom, you're going to be automatically put into the series. You'll get your reminders the day before, the hour before the call. And it happens every Tuesday. I changed the time going off of some of the feedback. I did a poll, got some messages. So I'm not changing it again. It's going to be every Tuesday morning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Right? So 9:30 a.m. Pacific. And it's so funny, the people that I get that are time zone challenged. I started doing it off with an Eastern, thinking, hey, people could just count backwards. But look, 9:30 a.m. Pacific seems to be what people could gauge off. I think it's easier for them to count forward than it is to count back. So every Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, for an hour, I will be doing these marketing webinars. We'll be answering your questions, whatever it happens to be, and we'll look at it and see if we could solve that problem or just give you some advice. Now, sometimes it's something simple, right? I've helped someone that has been spending literally 8 hours a day trying to figure someone out, and I helped them in 15 minutes. Not because I'm so awesome, but because I've spent 20 hours trying to figure out how to make that into 15 minutes. So use what I've done, use the hours I've spent wasted time on trying to figure something out, so that you don't have to waste your time, so you can focus on prospecting and focus on calling your clients, serving your customers well at the highest level, and working on your database, basically spending the time on the stuff that needs to be spent on. So it's the link is on there, Pathfinder X. Make sure you register for it, even if you don't show up. That way you get the reminders. If you can't show up tomorrow, then show up the next week or whatever to ask your questions, because and I mentioned this last time too, I get way too many DMs and Facebook Messenger saying, hey, Jason, do you have a second to help me out? And that second turns into a half an hour Zoom call, and I can't scale my time to do that every single day. So that's what these calls are going to be for. And then if you need, more in-depth help, then there'll be a channel for that within the Next Level Loan Officers through Pathfinder. But through that, for those that don't have the resources to do that, that's why I'm going to do this every week to help you guys out with questions. But the cool thing is then watch the replays, right? Because I may answer, and I know I will answer a question, we'll cover a topic. The solution will be something that you've been looking for, something that you could put play into your marketing stack. So that's reminder. And then also the letter X. I would love for you guys to subscribe to that. And if you don't like it, unsubscribe. Very simple. I don't hide the unsubscribe link like other people. It's right at the bottom, clear as day, right? And people were like, well, why do you do that? It's like, because I don't want to be an a-hole. Because I think people that do that are a pain in the butt. So and for those that missed this and don't watch the replay, Jess is going to be in the letter as well. So Jess, thank you for your time today. Thank you for doing another great webinar of information, taking action now. And I actually like that. I like the fact that we took something from the habits of the top producers and actually focused on that one piece. So loved it.
Ooh, I just used the space bar to unmute myself. This is cool.
All right. I know now you can go around and say, hey, I just found out this really cool hack that you could do in Zoom that people didn't know about. But anyway, Jess, thank you so much for your time. And thanks to everyone that stayed on here live for us to listen to this first Leadership Live. So I'm excited about that, excited for next month, and excited to see what Jess contributes to the mastermind. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care, and I'll see you in the mastermind.
Bye, y'all.